Okay, so now we want to move on. We've got our value study flower painting here somewhat developed, and we want to move on and start to think about this color, broken color imposter. So again, we can leave the brush marks on the surface, and we don't have to blend everything together. We can make it a little bit more impressionistic and expressive. In this, it's important for us to look, and my palette, I'm just going to mix my colors with my brushes. You can do that also if you like. But in these flowers, I noticed a range of different purples. We have blue purples and pinks and all types of different colors happening inside the flowers. In the area of the ground, we can see some nice browns and oranges, these really intense greens happening in places, even off in the background up there. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of colors, and it's okay really even if we exaggerate the colors and use this in some type of an expressive way. So if I want to make a kind of a blue purple, I might take this more purple version of red and a little bit of this ultramarine blue or cobalt blue. I forget which they call it in our kit, but we have this kind of purple here that we're getting more towards kind of a pink purple. Might grab a little more of that. We're going to be making a range of purples here, and I might be using more than a little bit of this, but I think this particular leaf right here has a really kind of a pink purple. That's maybe not even pink enough. And we'll kind of block that in. I see that pink purple there. I see it happening right here on this particular leaf. It's certainly back here in this one. And really what I'm doing here is just blocking in colors. It's kind of initial placement of these colors that I see. I see a lot of pink purple kind of up here towards the top up here in this particular petal here. I'm just kind of blocking in some areas where I see that color happening dramatically. I may go back and amplify that color as I move forward, but at this point I'm just kind of blocking it in some places where I see it. A little bit up here maybe. I also see a really blue purple that is a bit more of a muted blue purple. Let's see. So I take that, a little bit of that red. So trying out the other red as my mixing color for this purple. And that is not giving me exactly the blue purple that I'm after. And one of the things you can do if you're trying to mix a particular color, I'm trying to get this blue purple up here, is really just hold the brush up beside it and see if they match, or hold the palette knife up beside it depending on what you're doing. You can see how here I'm not using a palette knife, quite honestly, because it's locked in my office right now. So I'm just mixing with my brush. That might be your case too, and I'll just kind of hold it up against there. It looks pretty close to the blue that I'm after here, bluish purple. I'm gonna let that happen right up here. This brush is pretty large, larger than maybe I want, but since I'm just blocking colors in at this point, that shouldn't be a huge problem. And with this blue, really kind of runs along the top here a little bit, happens a little bit over here also. Again, we're doing what's just called blocking in colors. I see it kind of running along the front edge of this particular petal here, and up there a little bit. Really along this front edge of this petal here. A little bit of it happening up here. Just kind of blocking it in areas where I see it happening. The thing that we don't want to forget about, and that we would have taken some note of with our last painting, is the dark and light. And we get kind of obsessed with hue here and the different types of purple, and we sometimes forget about dark and light, so we do have to go back and modify that as we progress through this. I'm going to go back to my pink purple here, and one way we can switch the value there is by adding a little bit of white to it. It'll lighten it up a little bit. I should switch to a smaller brush at this point. And this lighter version of the color here starts to kind of happen. Some of these major areas of this, it looks like I'll have to lighten it up some more, but I'll just block this in, and I'll probably work back over it with some lighter colors as I go. But I'm just blocking in at this time, so definitely gonna have to lighten that up. And actually, I could probably work over it with some white just to see if it'll mix in as I go. You know, you can mix on the painting sometimes, see if you can get it to work. You kind of have to get some of these directional lines of the leaf, the way it functions, bends. A little bit of that runs along the front edge there. And we'll clean that up. I'm just, like I said, trying to kind of block things in at this point. A little bit of a lighter, oh, that's not lighter. Lighter pink tone on this petal here. And I kind of arbitrarily started with these pinks and purples just because it's kind of what dominates this particular image. These tones, that's too light for there. Where we got a lighter purple up here. Feeds up into there a little bit. Shows up over here and here. Okay. Got probably a lighter pinkish color that shows up in the areas. It needs to be more intense. There. And this color, I want that red, purple up there. That brush is a little big. I'm going to clean it out and use it to block on the background just a little bit. As you can see, we're just kind of mapping things in early on here. Background is really kind of a dark green back there. Take a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of blue, a bit of yellow. See if I can get to a dark green. Kind of an earthy, dark greenish, brownish color right there. Should have brought my palette knife home. Okay, we got kind of a green brown. We can block in some of this stuff back here. Just a general kind of block in. We'll go back and modify those colors more. Sometimes if I got a lot of paint on this brush, I'll kind of roll it, try to get that, squeeze some of the paint out of it. See if I can get some more detail. Sometimes I can kind of feed it up to certain things. If I paint over lines right now, I guess that's not a huge problem because I can just paint them out again. blocking in that kind of background, darker tone. And see if I can use this big brush to do that up here. There's that. And that's really probably the majority of that really dark tone. I'm getting rid of that big brush. I'm going to move over to something I can control a little better. We have a lot of interesting greens, more intense greens in the background, and so let's see if we can't mix a little bit more of an intense green back there. This certainly is an intense green. I think it's a little too intense maybe. This looks like it belongs in a Skittles package, and we need to earth it, make it a little more earthy. I'm going to take a little bit of brown here. See if I can knock it down a little bit from being so intense by using a neutral color to neutralize it. Then I'll kind of knock that into the background on this side of that little bud. That leaf, a little bit of it shows over here on the other side of that bud, and then quite a bit of it down here. And I'm just blocking it in at this point, so you know, I know I'm going to go back. I'm going to put some of that in the stem also. In a painting, the colors always kind of repeat. What's happening in the objects is happening in the background. That helps hold things together. It gets a little more yellow green over on this side, and so I'm going to add a little yellow to it there. Start chunking it in over on this side a little bit. A couple little stems or stalks or something over here. Just leave a suggestion of them. It is interesting how you can kind of see things differently in the color version of this project than you did in the black and white version. I would like a smaller round, something like this. About this size. We have quite a bit of orange going on in the background there also. Take a little bit of red, a little bit of burnt umber there to make this kind of red orange, and I think I need a little bit of yellow to make it more of an orange. That burnt umber will add a little bit of neutralized quality to it, so again we don't have super intense, but we see a lot of that orange happening kind of back in this area. This is probably a little bit intense. Some of it's happening in this stem up here. We'll try to knock that back too. It's on this thing. It's happening over here by these few places. And it's okay just to let it repeat. Maybe get a little bit of a lighter version of it also. Add some white and use it to kick it in this stem just a little bit. Certainly down here in this area around the stem there's a lot of lighter orange. Some down here, back here and such. Again, we're just making kind of an impression more than a real accurate photorealistic painting. We got some purples over here. I think I'll use some more of those. Let me add a little bit of red and see if I can't get a new version of purple to help. That does not look like what I need. Get some more blue. Slight variations on the purple. There's probably a little bit of that neutral color hiding in my brush, and it'll give me a little bit more of a neutralized purple. And let me see where I could use that. Yeah, it looks like kind of in this thing. A little more of a neutralized. Under here, for sure, this will be a good color. Sometimes the reality of the paint or acrylic paint dries, gets darker as it dries. It does dry. It dries rapidly, and don't forget your squirt bottle. You got to give your palette a nice squirt every now and again to make sure your paints don't dry out. Look, try to get a lighter pink here. Grab some more white. Pink, purple. And work this into this shape over here. And over here. To it. But I'm kind of just searching around on this painting, trying to find areas that match these different blues and purples and pinks and things that I'm making. Make this thing mimic nature to some degree. And probably not a bad idea. If you're so inclined, you could try to mix some of these paints, some of these different versions of colors ahead of time. Kind of look through the painting and figure out what color you want and where you want it, because you know, that can make it work a little more efficient as you go along. Without a palette knife, though, for me it's a little difficult. You wind up just putting a lot of paint inside of the brush bristles, and you just lose a lot of paint that way. But these are unique times, and so we just deal with them and try to make the paintings work. I do think it's a good idea to try to kind of start to, as you think about going in and try to refine value, try to look at some of the for me, I'm looking at some of the different shapes, the way the contours of the leaves travel, or the contour over these flower petals. They're not called leaves, they're flower petals. But as I put in some of these values, you know, really trying to get some of those, mimic some of those shapes that as they occur. I am going back in and borrowing some of my colors from other segments of the painting, and some of the initial colors just become underpainting. You know, they just kind of show up as underpainting. Right here I could use a little more bluish tint like I see there, and your colors can be amplified. You know, they don't have to be exactly like what you see in front of you in the photo. Over here this side, things are quite a bit darker in terms of the blue. This leaf kind of sticks up there and bends around down there. And I'm starting to get a more true to form breakout of things here. I'm getting a lot of selections on my palette that I can kind of quickly grab, and that's kind of the benefit of moving further into this process. You do wind up creating a lot of variations of colors, and you can go back into a leaf, say like this, and then kind of work back into areas and start to make it look a little more three-dimensional. This top part kind of glows with the pink there. The reality is these are transparent, and so they light passes through them, and they actually do kind of glow in areas. And the paint starts to mix on your brush. This is particular leaf really glows with that pink color. There's some of that pink underneath when it's a little more of a blue up on the top. And a dark blue up there. And it kind of whoop. A lot of blue. But it kind of transitions between those two. So maybe I'll let the brush run around and see if it can mix those things together a little bit. And then we might add some of these directional suggestions to start out, and then maybe go back in with some more detail for that as we move forward. You know, this has these kind of tiger stripes and things towards the middle, which I believe are there to attract the bees, and more we can add some stuff like that. Sometimes I like to spray a little bit of water onto the palette so that if I have some paint on the brush, sometimes I can kind of reactivate it and use it to kind of move colors around a little bit. Sometimes your finger, might want to use your finger to do some mixing. And we can get a little more of that intense pink here. You're getting that center part there, which is clearly the most and we need a little bit of that blue, maybe a lighter version of that blue up here. Give me blue. Purple blue. Oh, that's more of a sky blue, but let's throw that into the mix because it looks nice. I purplized it when it got into the brush there. That actually worked out really well. Again, these accidents that occur sometimes are sometimes better than your plan. So it's a good idea to go with them when they happen. Where's the pink? We'll add a little pink to that up there as we make it come into being. Okay, this thing up here needs a little bit of that blue, I think. Grab some green. This leaf down here. Is going to have this darker tone, maybe even more blue there. darker blue happening there. And a tad bit of white. The translucency of these things is really adding a lot of interesting changes to the colors as it. And the challenge of interpreting those things is potentially a lot of fun and then challenging, but you kind of have to keep after it. A little bit of white on the brush there to cool that down. Grab a little bit of this blue again. This part turns under right there. That petal kind of turns under, and then this part is kind of in shadow. That part up there catches some light, so we might try to mix a little bit of white into that pink up there to reflect the fact that it's catching a little bit of light. That's probably too much, and we'll have to paint it back just a little bit. This part up here is light, and we get a little bit of a lightening up on the petal right here. A little bit happening over here also on this petal. So we got a lot of value changes going on here. This petal is actually going to reach way over here. So we're kind of off on the shape to start out with. That's the type of adjustment you can make pretty easy as you push on. It's a little darker, kind of in a shadow place, the side of the petal, and there is a lighter thing happening, particularly along that top edge. Some of these shapes also pick up on some of that light. We do try to put a real bright edge up on the top there to make this particular leaf really stand out from that leaf that is behind it there. So we're not afraid to put some of our brightest brights right at that little moment in order to create contrast with the leaf that's behind it. Area just a bit. The value changes associated with these glowing leaves is pretty interesting. Try to get a darker purple again. I'm trying to create a contrast right there to get that leaf to bend back out. So on this other side of it, I'm going to lighten it up where this thing starts to turn back over to this side. Add a little bit of a lighter tone here also. Got to change. And get some of this stuff back. The leaf is curled and bent, so we'll try to get it to bend. A little bit of blue under there to contrast with what's behind it. Lighten up this side. Whoop, that wasn't planned. A lot of white there. That'll allow us to lighten up this particular side of the leaf. There's a little outcropping right there that catches a little shadow behind it, what that blue initially was. And a little more light over on this side. And clear that a little bit, see if I can get this stuff to blend. probably take a